Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today we are going to be ranking Doctor Who by decade, and we're going to be looking at the Ice Warrior stories. And this one's kind of an easy one because the Ice Warriors are only in 3 decades if we're going by the television show, not counting all of the extended media stuff. So we're going to be looking at the 60s, the 70s, and the 2010s. And this is actually a pretty easy one for me. I don't even need my notepad. I know how these fall pretty easily. Interesting thing about the Ice Warrior stories is that because they've had so few, they've never had a bad story. I don't think any of the Ice Warrior stories are bad stories. Now, I also don't think they've ever had any masterpieces. I don't even think they've had any what I would call classics. Like, none of the Ice Warrior stories feel like just classic must-see stories to me. But none of them have been bad either. I wouldn't even call any of them meh. I think they're all good, varying degrees of good. They range from good to really good. That's where all 6 of the stories kind of fall for me. Now, at the bottom, in 3rd place, is the 60s, the decade where they originated. The Ice Warriors drags for me. I've talked about that before. I talked about that recently when I actually ranked the Ice Warrior stories just a month or 2 ago. It just drags. It's too long at 6 parts. It only needed to be 4 parts. It just kind of goes on too much. The animation for episodes 2 and 3 looks really good. It's nice to have a mostly surviving Troughton story, of course, to watch to add to that catalog. Troughton is putting in a great performance. I really like the guy who's overly reliant on the computer a lot. Just the way the actor plays him, I really like. Victoria really irks me in this one. I'm not a big fan of Victoria. Nothing against Deborah. I love me some Deborah. But Victoria herself just irks me as a character, especially in this one. I find her very irritating. So yeah, just overall, it's good. It's just not like really good. The Seeds of Death is an improvement. It's still a little too long, I think. I'm a little kinder to it fresh off a rewatch, but it's a complete Troughton story, which is a plus. I think it's written better. I enjoy it. I love watching like 60s Doctor Who, what the future is going to look like, especially since it's not like super far ahead in the future, and how they're so reliant on the transmat stuff. I enjoy this one a lot. I like a lot of the guest characters a lot. I feel bad for the one guy who just doesn't want to die. You kind of feel for that guy. So it's a good story. Just again, not like a great story by any means. In 2nd place on the list is the 70s with the 2 Peladon stories. Monsters of Peladon I find the slightly weaker of the 2, but they're very close. They're almost a tie. Monsters has Sarah Jane in it, and I think that's one of the stories where Sarah Jane's written the best. I really love how well Sarah Jane's written in this story, so that really props it up on the list for me. And Elizabeth's putting in a great performance. John's, of course, is always putting in a good performance. The woman playing the Queen is putting in a good performance. The guy playing the engineer that I knew not to trust is putting in a good performance. He's also in Space Pirates. I don't like the fact that in Monsters they kind of go back to the Ice Warriors being the villain. Although I do love the fact that they do say in the episode that they're not most of the Ice Warriors. They're just a rogue faction going back to the old ways. I do like the fact they put that in there. But it's still a little frustrating to, oh, it's the Ice Warriors again. Cursed, I like a little better. David Troughton is great as the king. And I do love the fact that the Ice Warriors aren't the bad guys in it. That's kind of a bit of a red herring. I think that's really clever writing for the show to do that. And I love the fact that even the Doctor is fooled and thinks they're behind it. It shows how even the Doctor can be prejudiced and how he can make mistakes and false assumptions and be in error and be flawed as a character even. The fact that, especially the 3rd Doctor, that's very much a 3rd Doctor thing to assume he's the smartest one in the room and assume it's the Ice Warriors. It's very fitting for his Doctor to make that mistake. So that one bumps this one up a little ahead of Monster for me. And then in 1st place, surprising, some people might actually be the 2010s. I tend to love both of the Ice Warrior stories from this decade. Empress of Mars is really fun. It's a little weird in places. But I enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. The Ice Warriors come across as a noble race that lives kind of by their own code. I like the effects in it. I love the blast effect that the Ice Warriors do, because it's not the classic Who effect that they do, but if you didn't know that, you could assume it's a slightly updated version of that, because it has this kind of silly classic Who-y look to it. I mean, some of you know what I mean. It looks like, if you didn't know, you would think, oh, that's how they probably killed him in Classic Who. That's why it looks like that. It has that look to it, even though it's not how they killed him in Classic Who. But I do like the effect of it. It worked really nice. And the set design looked really good for that episode as well. And then there's Cold War, which is probably my favorite Ice Warrior episode. I mean, you have David Warner. That's always a plus. The guy playing the captain on the ship is great. I love the claustrophobic sense of the episode since you're on a cramped, small submarine. It's really a base under siege if you think about it. A submarine under siege. Instead of a bus, it's a sus. And Matt Smith's putting in a good performance. Clara's not irritating me, which is good. I tend to like Clara with Matt, actually. So that's good. And then I love the way they update the Cybermen design. Instead of doing like they did with the Silurians and just screwing up their design totally. I like the fact that they kept the classic look, but explained that it was armor they're wearing and that they can come out of the armor. I think that's a really clever way to keep that classic Ice Warriors design, but explain why it looks like that. So it doesn't look like something from the 60s. It explains that it's just battle armor and that it's dishonorable for them to be seen out of it. That's clever. And then it also creates more of a horror feel to the episode with this thing slithering around like a lizard, or like an alien in the first Alien movie, you know, and you never know where he is and he can just reach down and grab you. I love that. I love the tension in that episode. I mean, it's not straight out horror or anything, but I love the nods to it that are in there. So it's a lot of stuff going on, and those are just the two most fun episodes the Ice Warriors have ever been in for me, are both the modern Ice Warrior episodes. I just think they're a lot more fun, they're a lot more engaging, they're a lot more exciting, and they never bore me, which is a big plus. So yeah, I got to give the first place victory to the 2010s here, to the Moffat era. I don't say that a lot. And to Modern Who, I don't say that a lot either. Because I think that's the best decade to have Ice Warrior stories, and my two favorite Ice Warrior stories, actually. The 2010s. So I want to know what you think and how you would rank the Ice Warriors stories by decade. Comment down below and let me know. Other things to do. Don't forget to click the like button and the subscribe button and the bell for notifications so you never miss out on another video. I also have a P.O. box if you would like to send anything for me to look at and review, Doctor Who related or otherwise. It's a sci-fi channel, or any of the other things I'm interested in from any of my other channels. I have a Star Wars channel called Prowl 1701, Prowl space 1701. And then I also have a pop culture channel called Geek Speak Euphoria, where I talk about superhero stuff, video game stuff, toy collectible stuff, like some of these, if you want to check that out. I also have a Patreon if you would like to support me that way. There's a link to that down in the description below. That does help me keep the bills paid. I did just hit double digits on my patrons Patreon page recently, and that is really exciting. So a very special thank you to all of my patrons. I want to give a shout out to some of my top tier patrons, Stephen Crane, Colin Coney, and Finn Perkins. I appreciate your support as I do the support of all of you. And most importantly, thank you for watching.